Angel fans, is Zack Plesac able to find his old form and become the pitcher he was just a few years ago? He thinks so, and the Angels hope so, and we're going to share what he's doing to get better and if it translated into his first spring start yesterday. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And we know you want to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all that Super Halo content. So here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can make every moment more. And new customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, we've been fans of this team for so many years. It's our third season coming into Locked On Angels with you, and we're here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking Angels baseball. It's a pleasure, a privilege. I try to say privilege and pleasure at the same time. You ever do that? You ever combine
Just trying
words
to
like
save
that?
time, right?
Just trying to save time. Like the Baltimore Orioles, right? Oh,
Yes.
I can't wait to bring that one back.
Oh, first series of the year. You're going to be able to use that as much as you want.
That's right. Hey, on today's show, we're recapping the game between the Angels and the Brewers. The Angels walked away with a win. We'll talk about that game from yesterday. We'll talk about why Jordan Montgomery would actually be a good fit for the Angels. We'll talk all about that. But first, Mike, let's talk about Zack Plesac and the improvements that he's hoping to make as he begins his career anew with the Angels. Let's go.
Yeah, he's trying to get back to his old self with a new repertoire, John.
Good job saying repertoire.
Thank you very much. He spent part of the winter remaking himself at Driveline, John, where a lot of the players go, and really felt like it benefited him. He said he replaced his four-seam fastball with a two-seamer and changed his slider into more of a sweeper. How dare he? Into more of a sweeper, and he hopes that he will induce more swings and misses. But the big question, John, is will it work? If so, the Angels might have a steal here with Zack Plesac. He's on a 1-year, $1 million deal, and I'm glad that they got him because I think it's a low-risk, high-reward guy. Now, he was a 3.32 ERA pitcher in his first two big league seasons with Cleveland. But the past 3 years, he's seen his ERA jump from 4.72 and then to 7.59 last year. And John, he spent the second half of last season in AAA.
Sounds like California gas prices. They went from 3.32 to 4.72 to 7.59.
It's the summer blend, John.
That's right.
The gas prices, right?
Mike, despite his struggles, he's hoping that he can cling to the positives and put those forgettable seasons behind him way in the distant past. As recently as 2022, his ERA was 4.31. It included 11 quality starts. He's got a 46% quality start rate. That was higher than the major league average. So again, 6 innings, 3 runs or less, good quality starts there. The Angels starters had quality starts in just 30% of their outings.
Yay.
In 2023.
We all know.
Thank you, Shohei Ohtani, for carrying that
Right.
30%. Yeah, that's basically what it was. Last season, Plesac had 2 starts in which he gave up at least 5 runs and 3 in which he allowed 3 or fewer. So he had a back and forth season there. The numbers from his past few years tell the story of a pitcher who is sometimes very good, sometimes very bad, and that offers him just enough hope with the Angels this season.
Yeah, Plesac said he's viewing this spring as a fresh start with a new team, and he has a chance to try to reclaim his 2019 and 2020 self. He said it's just really remaining confident. Interesting that that's always the case, right? With a lot of pitchers. We've read that about Sandoval and Detmers and other pitchers, and same thing with Plesac. Just remaining confident, knowing that my stuff is good, not trying to do too much. It's not like I'm far off from being the dominant pitcher I was in the league just a few years ago. And then before yesterday's game, manager Ron Washington said he likes what he's seen so far from Plesac. He said the guy has some pitching skills, and I think more than anything the past couple of years, he just got in his own way. And Ron has a way of simplifying things for players, but also for fans as they're listening with phrases like just got in his own way and, hey, throw it over the plate and use your hands and use your body. And I think that he's probably a really good manager for Zack Plesac, right?
Yeah, before the game yesterday, he wanted and told Plesac to just go out there and be yourself. And so hopefully that is the attitude that he brought to the table yesterday. I know we'll talk about it in just a minute, Mike, but it did look like he was working on some things and in that game and whatnot. But I will say this. One thing I noticed, and of course, it's that four-seam fastball. The velocity dropped on his four-seam from his first big leagues year or season, I should say, all the way to his most recent one. So he's not a very hard thrower in the first place, but he was sitting around 93, 94, 93 and a half on average in that first season. And then you just look at the numbers and it's 92 and a half, 91 and a half, 91. And so if you lose those ticks off your fastball, it becomes a very hittable pitch. And Mike, his bread and butter is the off-speed stuff. And so to hear him working on, more of a sweeper, trying to change that four-seam into a two-seam, just really interesting to me how these guys kind of work through these things. He's only 29 years old. Right. And the fact is like, we've got him under team control for 2 more seasons. If the Angels want him, he has an option, which is also key because he did sign a $1 million major league deal. But if he had to start the season down in the minors, that's also a possibility. Also seems like he could pitch out of the bullpen, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of flexibility with Plesac. I don't think that he gets anybody that's in the starting rotation out of the rotation unless he pitches out of his mind this spring, which I don't think that will happen. However, I do think that he does add a lot of depth to this team, and he does give them a lot of flexibility. Perhaps he's the one that steps in when they need an extra starter or when it's a doubleheader. He might even be a long reliever for the Angels. I think really what they're looking for is an improved pitcher, because what you don't want is somebody coming in and eating innings, but doing it in a terrible way, right? You want somebody coming in that can eat some innings and be moderately successful so that it's not destroying your team and it's not destroying your pitching staff.
So I hear you on that. And I think the most ideal situation is that, yes, you do have a guy come in and eat some innings for you, especially if you have that need, right? None of our Angel starters have gone above 180 innings, I believe. And only Tyler Anderson has come close to that. But the rest of the Angel staff hasn't pitched more than 150 innings. And that's a big question that we have coming into this spring. So there is going to need to be help from all different places, whether that's Rosenberg or Davis Daniel or Zack Plesac or even Jose Suarez getting some starts. So you do want a guy who can come up and give you a good quality start. And his quality start rate is, strong. Gives me some enthusiasm. But you also said you want them to not eat innings in a terrible way. So if we're going to be modest here and get a guy who's going to step into the rotation at some point and eat up some innings for you, what's a good line in terms of innings, runs given up, that sort of thing, from a guy who's not part of your regular rotation?
I think that it depends on the situation for me. If you're in a game and let's say Plesac is somebody that comes in and he is the long reliever, right? And he's eating up innings because it's 14-2, we're up, or 14-2, we're down. I want a guy that can minimize the damage. And so whatever that might mean is maybe no more than 1 or 2 runs, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 runs, right? I want a guy who can come in and get 3 up, 3 down, get quickly through these innings. Again, if we're up by a lot or we're down by a lot, I need a guy who can move fast and minimize the damage so that we can close the book on this game and celebrate the big victory, or close the book on this game and move on, because that was a really difficult game, right? I think about the Angels last year when they played the Rockies and they scored, 467 runs to 1, right? And what the Rockies needed was somebody to just come in and close the door. And that's what happened in the last few innings. They had a guy that came in and they got the final outs, which was great. And then it actually helped them the next day because they ended up winning 2 out of 3, got outscored, but ended up winning 2 out of 3 in that series. That's what I would want from a Zack Plesac. I want him to come in and I want him to hold the line, minimize the damage. It's something that really didn't happen last year with Jaime Barria because you weren't sure what you're going to get with him. Like he could either be really, really good or really, really terrible. And he was really, really terrible more often than not.
Yeah. If Plesac is going to do, if he's going to get a start, maybe he's doing a spot start or something. I think the most you could ask for is like 6 innings and 4 runs, right?
Yeah.
Like he gets through a start like that and just minimizes damage. And that's what you would want out of like a spot starter, not something you'd want to see all the time. You don't want to be giving up 4 runs all the time. But if his ERA is 4.5 as recently as 2022, you might expect that, yeah, he can give you some length, but the team's going to have to work to get those runs back.
Sure.
So he's gonna be suitable in the sense that he's taking over a spot just for a spot start, but the Angels are going to have to pour on the offense to kind of counteract that. So you might think about, hey, when Plesac's on the mound because, you know, you're missing a guy or you need this extra start, you might want to put all your best chips in the 1 through 9 to make sure that your offense is solid. So again, just to review, he's changing that slider to a sweeper. He's going from the 4-seam to the 2-seam, working on things. The Angels are stretching him out to be a starter. He could certainly fit into the bullpen. If he doesn't make the Angels rotation, he's probably going to start in AAA. Again, they have that option. He could also pitch out of the bullpen like we were mentioning. And second, he's under team control for at least 2 more seasons. So if they want to maintain having Zack Plesac on the team, they're able to do that. So the big question here is, Mike, what did we see in Zack Plesac's start yesterday? Well, coming up, we'll share exactly what we saw and give you our observations. We appreciate you making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. The Angels playing the Rockies today at 12:10 Pacific time. Thought the Rocky Mountains would be a little rockier.
Just going to say that, but I didn't want to interrupt you. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Tyler Anderson is getting his first spring start. You know that we talked about what could Tyler Anderson do to be good during the offseason. So, you know, I'm going to be watching like a hawk to see how he pitches in today's game. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. And as we continue Locked On Angels today, we'll get into that conversation about yesterday's game and Zack Plesac coming right up.
John, you know, I'm not a betting guy because I'm selfish and I'm cheap and
you would bet with your emotions.
I would totally bet with my emotions. So if you are like me, but then you're like, hey, I'd love to try this, but I don't want to like risk it all. FanDuel is perfect for you because they can get you a big dub on FanDuel. They're America's #1 sports book. And right now, if you're like me and you're going to be a new customer, you can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. $150 if your bet wins. And they're going to help you with your bets, especially if it's on NBA games or NBA players, scores, assists, rebounds, technical fouls, all of that good stuff. Will Steve Kerr's hair stay the same all game long? I loved when he played, John, because his hair looked like it never got messed up. Now as a coach, it's still perfect. Like Steve Kerr has got the greatest hair. But you can bet on all of that on FanDuel. They have quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get your dub. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. Locked On Everydayers, don't forget to hop on over to Locked On Sports today on YouTube. It's the world's first 24/7 national sports streaming channel, and it's on YouTube at all times of day, all times of night. Can't fall asleep? Put it on. Listen to what the top stories of the sports world were that day. If you're waking up in the morning and you're getting your coffee ready, there you go. Put it on. It's on 24/7. It's not going anywhere. And so you can jump in on YouTube, head on over there, Locked On Sports today, and hit subscribe to the world's first 24/7 national sports streaming channel.
Angels got a win yesterday, and it was a 6-4 win over the Brewers, and Zack Plesac did pitch in this game. So a couple of observations. First, here was his final line, Johnny. 2 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, and 1 K. So a couple of just basic observations at first. It felt like he was working the inside and outside edges of the strike zone. He did induce some soft contact, and we saw some guys flying out or popping out. And then there was one hit that was snuck down the left field line for a triple.
It was the right field line. Sal Frelick, man, that guy.
Right field line, yes.
Snuck one down past Nolan Shawnoel, and then Willie Adames really like powered one off the end of his bat. I think anybody else wouldn't have been able to do it, but because Adames is such a big dude, like he powered one off the end of the bat and it landed for a hit against Plesac.
Plesac was interviewed after the game, and here's a couple of things that he said. He wanted to get his timing and his pacing on the mound, so that's typical in spring.
That walk that he got, part of that was a pitch timer violation. So he was in a 2-2 count and went to 3-2, and then the next pitch was a walk. So again, working on his timing, pacing, all that stuff, he's got to get readjusted to that.
Yep. The new slider he threw is his sweeper. And so he was trying that out yesterday as well. And then he's continuing to work on that 2-seamer. Remember, went from a 4-seamer to a 2-seamer, a little bit more movement on the 2-seamer. Different looks to get into better counts. And he was mixing his fastballs in his counts. So, John, what's the verdict from yesterday's game on Zack Plesac?
Honestly, Mike, I think that we're going to need to see more out of Plesac before we make a judgment whether he's going to be part of this team. I think at the moment, I'm set with the 5 guys that they have. And like you said, if he's going to bump anybody out of this rotation, he's got to look like a stud. And yesterday, he didn't look like a stud.
No.
But it's not by any fault of his own. It's more like if he's out there figuring things out and not trying to be a stud, I think that's the difference here. And I think that's why we need to see more of him in spring training. But yesterday was all about getting a feel on the mound, getting back into the rhythm of pitching, working on the new pitches that he wants to bring to the table, and then practice throwing those pitches and giving hitters different looks. And like you mentioned before, he really was working the edges. And the best thing he was doing was inducing not weak contact, but like soft pop-up fly ball kind of contact. But again, his biggest weapons are that off-speed stuff. And so if he can really hone in on the 2-seamer and the fastball and the 4-seamer, that's going to set him up well to use his off speed, because he really had a lot of off balance swings in the 2 innings that he was pitching. But Mike, let's get to the game here. Let's talk about that game against the Brewers.
Can we shout the guy out who put the Trout name out?
That was so great.
It looked like the Hollywood sign, but it's in Trout's name. I love that.
And it was perfect in the hills behind the stadium too. Yes. Those Tempe Diablo Stadium hills are just iconic back there.
And then did you love how he's just standing next to it, kind of just leaning on it?
That's right.
It was so good. So good. We got another look at Trout with runners in scoring position to start out this game. Taylor Ward led off, which I don't know, John, like whenever I see him in the leadoff spot, I go, I guess I kind of like that. What'd you think?
Yeah, I felt comfortable with that. I'm at least glad that they're giving it a shot, because it did move Mickey Moniak to the middle of the order.
Which I feel like Mickey Moniak is better in the middle because he doesn't walk a lot. And if he can get hot and he makes a lot of contact, I think he can move some runners around, hit some sac flies, get some RBIs.
His best spot is in the middle of the order as we've looked at the stats. But I totally get why he's leading off in Ron Washington's lineup, because other than like Joe Adell or maybe even Zach Neto, like there's not a speedster on this team. So, and not that Taylor Ward is particularly fast, but he does have better speed than like a Nolan Shawnoel.
He does get on base.
And he got on base with a double. Shawnoel grounded out that moved Ward to third. Dude, Mike Trout crushed what would have been an easy double.
That was a classic Mike Trout swing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and beautiful.
And Sal Frelick, man, that guy made the most spectacular diving catch out there. Who am I thinking of from, he was on the Royals and then he was on the Brewers during the 2014. Darn, I can't think of his name, the outfielder.
Adam, is it Adam?
No. But anyway, he broke our hearts during the playoffs in 2014. And then I think he did eventually end up on the Brewers. But man, the Brewers were making all kinds of crazy catches in the outfield. But yeah, Sal Frelick taking that away from Mike Trout, but it did drive in Taylor Ward from third base.
Yeah, and then there was some first to third that happened in this game, Johnny. How about that, huh? Talk about that.
Yeah, one of the best moments of the day. Chad Wallach gets on first, and then Levon Soto has this like little bloop that falls in behind the first baseman. And then Wallach ends up going first to third on this little bloop. And it was 2 outs. So obviously he had the head start, but it paid off, Mike, because Zach Neto, man, had himself a game. He launched what they called and scored a double. But to me, it looked like a triple. He was around in second. But it was off the right center field wall at the very top of the wall. Neto gets the third, drives in 2 RBIs, man. He had himself a game, and we'll talk a little bit more about him in just a second. But Mike, talk about the relievers who came in this one.
Yeah, I love that you tweeted out our Matt Moore, Kylo.
Moore?
Yes, I love that. He came in, ground out, 2 flyouts for a 1-2-3 inning. I'm going to have to get my pronunciation guide out again, John. Is it Zuniga? Yiga, that's what it is. Thank you very much. Man, he was throwing some gas. He was throwing really hard. Strikes out the side with his fastball, and then Adam Clark. Now I'm messing myself up.
Adam Kolarek,
Kolarek, thank you. He's the I think what I was doing is trying to pronounce his name, and then I read the next line that you typed. The discount Aaron Loop. I love that.
Yes.
Had a hit by pitch to a lefty, RBI double to a lefty, another RBI double. But Trout had trouble tracking down that one, so not necessarily his fault. Kolarek also, he settled down later on, struck out the side from there. 2 lefties, and then had a righty.
Yeah, Lorenzo Cain is what I was thinking.
That's who it is.
Frelick was looking like Lorenzo Cain.
I was thinking Adam Jones or something like that. Yeah.
Alex Gordon is probably who you were thinking.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, man. Kolarek again. He did settle down, but that was a little nerve-wracking there at the beginning. Mike, some hitting notes here. Neto, Shawnuel, and Ward all got 3 at-bats in this game. That's up from the 2 that each of the starters had been getting previously. It looks like we're going to start seeing the starters take more at-bats at this point. Nolan Shawnuel said that to Erica Weston in his interview. He also said that Logan O'Hoppe does all the cooking for him and the Joyce brothers.
Yes, I love that.
At their apartment. Zach Neto's big day included that previously mentioned double, but then he hit a real triple to left field, and that drove in Livan Soto. And speaking of Livan Soto, Mike, I know that he got us all hyped in September. It was a short sample size in 2022. Comes up, hits 400 last year. Didn't look great. And then he's DFA'd to make room for Robert Stevenson, I think was the move there. He goes to the Orioles. He gets waived again. He comes back to the Angels. And I am so glad that we have him as infield depth. Listen to this. He went 3 for 3 with 2 runs scored. Now, I know it's spring training, but what I did like is the fact that even if he's not going to be great in the major leagues, he played some third base today, and he looked really good over there. In fact, he made a great stab at third base during Caden Dana's debut, Mike. Caden Dana got on the mound, and he pitched 2 innings in this one. Talk about that.
Yeah, it was great to see him on the mound. We've already kind of teased out, hey, you should pay attention to this guy. 95 to 96 on his fastball, John. So in the 6th inning, he gave up a single. Then there were 2 ground outs. There was a nice stab at third by Soto, who was playing third at the time, and then got a pop out. Then 7th inning, big strikeout, ground out to short, ground out to second. Remember, he's 20. He's only 20 years old, and he looked like a professional pitcher out there. And the Angels got their 2nd win of the spring, 6-4 over the Brewers.
Yeah, Caden Dana, what I was really impressed with, throwing that really hard fastball, Mike, and he was throwing it down in the zone and getting a ton of those ground outs. I mean, again, he had 4 ground outs. He had the pop-up and then the strikeout. But, man, he just kind of, after he gave up that first single, just kind of rolled through the next 6 guys. And pretty awesome to see him go out there for 2 innings. Ron Washington had a lot of great things to say about him. So keep your eye on Caden Dana, everybody, the number 2 prospect in the Angel system behind Nolan Shawnuel.
Was just talking to some friends about going to a baseball game once the regular season starts, and they said, man, we got to get some tickets. Where do we go? Guess where you go? Game Time. The Game Time app is perfect for you. They're the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see where you're going to sit before you get there. They have all-in pricing right up front, so you know you're getting a great deal, and you can buy tickets with 2 taps, and you're all set. Plus, they're obsessed with finding ways to save you money on your tickets. They have Game Time deals right up until the start of the event, sometimes even an hour after after it starts. They have zone deals where you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and they save you about an average of 18%. And then they have the Game Time guarantee, which means you're always going to get the best price. So if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. You can download their app right now, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms do apply. Again, create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Mike, all throughout the offseason, we had a lot of questions about which starting pitchers the Angels could go for, and a lot of them were about Blake Snell. Now, he's still available as of this recording, but so is this other pitcher, Jordan Montgomery, and we've talked about him briefly at times. In fact, in our GM redo, he was the guy that I changed my mind to after Aaron Nola got re-signed by the Phillies. And so Jordan Montgomery is somebody we really haven't had a chance to discuss in a while. The conversation really got going on Sunday because Mark Feinsand of MLB.com said that the Angels, quote, appear primed and ready to land either Montgomery or Snell when all is said and done. Of course, you and I made our spring training hot take. The Angels sign Blake Snell because it feels like the most Angels move they could do. In my opinion, though, Mike, I think that Montgomery would be a good fit for this team. If you look at his stats last season, he had 32 starts. He went 10-11. Now, he was with a pretty bad Cardinals team before he got traded to the Rangers. In fact, he went 4-2 with the Rangers. Listen to this, a season 3.20 ERA, but it was 2.79 with the Rangers. So 2.79 there, 188 and 2/3 innings pitched. He had a 138 ERA plus, making him 38% better than league average and a 4.1 baseball reference WAR. Mike, his FIP, his fielding independent pitching, think that if you had a fully competent defense behind you, what his ERA would be. It was 3.56, above average because 4 to 4.2 is about average when it comes to FIP. Mike, you're going to love this because I know you like WHIP. Walks and hits per innings pitched, 1.193.
Ooh, that's good.
And finally, here's his hits per nine was 8.4 hits per nine. Less than 1 home run per nine, so 0.9 home runs per nine.
Wow.
2.3 walks per nine. You love to see that. And 7.9 Ks per nine, so about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings.
Jordan throws a sinker, a change, a curveball, a four-seam, and a cutter. John, the sinker had an insane plus 16 run value.
That's
last
nuts.
year.
Yeah.
We talked about the slider for Reed Detmers is like plus 7.
Yeah.
His sinker, Montgomery's sinker, plus 16. Like
nobody's doing anything against that sinker.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And there was something interesting, and I'd love for you to talk about it. In terms of the results from last year, Montgomery and Griffin Canning are actually pretty similar, aren't they?
It's funny because we talked about Canning on yesterday's show, and as I was looking up stuff for Montgomery, I was like, where have I seen this before? And I realized it's because I was doing the research for Canning, and I noticed this. Mike, their walks per 9, Montgomery's got a 2.29 last year. Canning had a 2.55. Their walk percentage relative to how many batters they faced, Montgomery was at 6.2%, Canning 6.7%. Their average against, both of them had a 244 batting average against. Their WHIP, their walks and hits per innings pitched, Montgomery was 1.19, as I mentioned. Canning, 1.24. Mike, this is crazy. The batting average on balls in play, so again, things that aren't a strikeout, a walk, or a home run, batting average on balls that are in, from the plate to the wall, right? 294 for Montgomery, 296 for Canning. Finally, their hits per 9, Montgomery, 8.4 hits per 9, Canning, 8.6 hits per 9. Now, it is important to point out that Montgomery has had a better home runs per 9 and better FIP than Griffin Canning. Mike, really, Montgomery had elbow issues and then eventually got Tommy John surgery, and that was all put behind him in 2021. So kind of where I guess you could say his career begins is 2021. And he's hitting free agency for the first time. He's coming off a World Series win with the Rangers, where he was like the hero of the rotation, and he's looking for a good payday here, Mike. It's complicated because just like Snell, he's a Scott Boras client.
Yeah.
And all those guys, and Bellinger just recently signed, they've all held out pretty long for the right deal. But I think the major difference here, Mike, is that Montgomery doesn't have a draft pick compensation tied to him because he was a midseason trade. Now, if the Angels were to sign Blake Snell, they would lose one of their top 100 picks that they have in the draft this year, and they have 4 of those. So Montgomery might be the better choice just by virtue of don't lose out on any of your draft picks, Mike. But despite what he'll get paid and how many years he might get, I think we need to talk about why he would benefit the Angels, why the Angels would benefit from having Jordan Montgomery in the rotation. Why don't you read those out for us there, Mike? Some of the benefits that Montgomery would bring.
It'd be innings. He's pitched no less than 157 innings the last 3 years. He hasn't missed any time other than a small COVID issue since recovering from Tommy John. He's had at least 30 starts the last 3 years. Durability, longevity. He's an innings guy. Remember, none of the Angels got more than 150 innings last year, so this is huge, right? And then last season, 21 of his 32 starts were 6+ innings. Imagine that. I love that. So that's a really positive if the Angels do grab him, and why you and I think that he'd be a great benefit to this Angels rotation, and why he's better than Blake Snell.
Any concerns that you might have? Let me just say that he might require an overpay considering the season he's coming off of. But Mike, the good news is that it's not as if 2023 was some sort of like anomaly, because with Blake Snell, we've talked about the fact that he's never hit 180 innings unless it's one of his Cy Young winning seasons, of which there are 2. But Mike, his career ERA is right in line with what it was last year. His FIP, his WHIP, all right in line. The home run rate is actually 2.3 last year, is 2.9 in his career. So the numbers there, Mike, are not that different from what Montgomery has done over his career. So I don't think that there's any anomalies there.
Yeah. And finally, some of the takeaways, Johnny. Montgomery is durable. He would immediately make this rotation better. He wouldn't cost the Angels that draft pick. He's not an ace, but he would be for the Angels if he stood up for the Angels, right? And if the Angels secured him for 3 to 5 years, depending on the contract, could really add a solid rotation piece for the future and someone that they could count on for the future.
Yeah, so I think if you're going to go with the 2, I don't get me wrong. Like, if they get Blake Snell, I'll be happy.
Sure.
But if you're going to go with one of the 2, I think Jordan Montgomery is the way to go.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Remember, the Angels play the Rockies today at 12:10 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Mike, what do we have on deck for Thursday's show?
Angels grabbed a ton of depth pieces in 2024. Fans wanted maybe a big signing or 2, but they didn't really do that. And there's a reason for that, and we're going to share one stat that maybe GMPM was allowing to motivate him, and we're going to talk about that stat tomorrow and what the Angels can do this year in order to continue to move forward and maybe avoid that stat in 2024. So that's tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to this mystery stat, and we'll also be recapping the game as well, everybody. All right, friends, we hope you'll join us tomorrow. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
Can people stop tagging me in Shohei's home run? I get it. He's good. I don't need to see that. It's heartbreaking. Stop it.